Committee on Transportation, Infrastructure, Public Safety come to order. Ben, call the roll.
Senators Fitzwater,
Here.
Brown,
Here.
Bean,
Here.
Eigel, Razor, Schroer, Williams.
Quorum being established, we're going to go into the hearing. As soon as we get a member or two more, we'll go into executive session. So we'll probably interrupt the hearing to knock out a couple bills. But Senator Gannon, if you want to, actually, we'll just go into executive session now, and we'll take care of that. And then as members show up, they can put their votes in. The Senate Committee on Infrastructure and Public Safety is being. I've already done that. Sorry. I move that we go into executive session. So I have a second. That we're in executive session. I move that Senate Bill 998 be brought before the committee. Do I have a second? I have a second. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is before the committee. I move that Senate Bill 998 be voted out of committee. Do pass. I have a second. This bill was presented last week by Senator Hoskins, creating the Anti-Red Flag Gun Seizure Act. Any discussion? Ben, call the roll.
Senators Fitzwater,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Bean,
Aye.
Eigel, Razor, Schroer, Williams.
By your current vote of 4-0, that bill has been moved to pass. I now move that Senate Bill 1008 be brought before the committee. Having a second, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is before the committee. I move that Senate Bill 1008 be voted out of committee. Do pass. Do I have a second? I have a second. This bill was presented last week by Senator Crawford and relating to outdoor advertising. Any discussion? Seeing none, Ben, call the roll.
Senators Fitzwater,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Bean,
Aye.
Eigel, Razor, Schroer, Williams.
By your vote of 4-0, you voted do pass Senate Bill 1008. Having no more business before the executive session, I move that we move out of executive session. Having a second, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. We're out of executive session. Now, Senator Gannon, we're ready for you whenever you're ready on Senate Bill 1374.
Well, good morning, Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, Senator Elaine Gannon, representing Senate District 3. Thank you for the opportunity to present Senate Bill 1374, also known as Bentley and Mason's Law. I won't really spend time explaining Bentley and Mason's story, as I have someone here who can tell it much better than me. However, I will go ahead and explain the details of the bill. If a person is convicted of the offense of driving while intoxicated and in doing so causes the death of a parent or guardian, the person shall pay restitution to the child of the deceased parent or guardian until the child reaches 18 years of age. Monthly restitution will be an amount reasonable and necessary to support the child, which could include financial needs of the child, financial needs of the surviving parent or guardian, including the state if the state becomes the guardian, the standard of living to which the child is accustomed, the physical and emotional condition of the child, and reasonable work-related child care needs. If the person ordered to pay restitution is unable to do so due to prison confinement, they shall begin making payments no later than the first anniversary of the date of his or her release from confinement. Thank you again for the opportunity to present this bill, and we have some very good witnesses.
Any questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, thank you, Senator. Anybody here to testify in favor of the Senate bill? Come on forward, and if you would fill out a witness form for us for our records, and proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, my name is Jared Bright. I serve as the Executive Director of Mothers Against Drunk Driving in the Heartland Midwest. Special thank you to Senator Gannon. This is a very important bill before you, and it is currently before 22 states, currently on the desk of the Utah and South Dakota governor for signature. It has been introduced and passed in South Korea. It is on the table in the Cayman Islands. This is a national and international public health crisis. Drunk and drug driving remains the number one cause of death on our roadway, and when we look at those most impacted, families, friends, co-workers, it is imperative that the most vulnerable of victims and survivors are taken care of, and that is what Bentley and Mason's Law does. This bill ensures that those who lose their parents and guardians have an opportunity, the same opportunity that others do if it wasn't for the 100% preventable crime that was committed against the juvenile or minor. Reform is needed in this area of drunk and drug driving, as after 40 years in this business of cutting drunk and drug driving nearly in half, we are seeing an annual rate of double-digit increases of fatalities on our roadways. When 1 out of 10 cars on the roadway during the daytime are impaired, we have a public health crisis. Deterrence in our justice system is key, and Mothers Against Drunk Driving believes wholeheartedly that this bill will serve as not only a deterrence to drunk and drug driving, but will serve to take care of the most vulnerable victims among us, our children. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony. Anybody else here to testify in favor of the bill?
My name is Cecilia Williams. I want to thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of the bill. And I want to thank Senator Gannon for bringing Bentley and Mason's Law to the Senate. I hope that you guys all pass this important bill. I'm going to explain how Bentley and Mason's Law came along. Please bear with me. It's not always easy. On April the 13th of 2021, a drunk driver killed my 30-year-old son, Cordell, 25-year-old daughter-in-law-to-be, Lacey, and 4-month-old grandson, their son, Cordell II, leaving behind Bentley and Mason, who were 2 and 4 at the time. Now, I don't know if you can imagine getting up in the middle of the night to a knock at your door and opening up your door to find an officer and a state trooper telling you that your family is unrecognizable, that they were killed in a fiery crash by a drunk driver going 109 miles an hour, hit them in the back, and slammed them into a tree. And the car ignited upon impact. And can you imagine yourself looking around them, trying to find your family? Because that's a reality for me. That's a reality for so many other families. This still does not feel real. I don't think it ever will. And there are so many families in Missouri who suffer the same thing. And it is not easy, because we all know that driving impaired is 100% preventable. There is no excuse for it. In today's world, we have Ubers, we have Lyfts, we still have the good old taxis. You got friends that don't drink. It's easy to make sure you have a designated driver. Driving impaired is a selfish act, because too many people think about the fun that they're going to have and go out with their friends and enjoy their night more than they think about what's going to happen when they are impaired. Those things should be thought about before they even get into their car. That should be the very first plan they make. But unfortunately, so many do not do that. Bentley and Mason's Law came about a month after the crash. Because I did my research, I wanted to find out what was going to happen. And a lot of people get the assumption that because a person has killed someone, they're going to prison for life. Or they're going to do, 20, 30 years. There is no truth in that. The man who killed my family, he got 8 years. He's eligible for parole next year. That hurts. That hurts bad. And trying to understand how someone can be so careless and not care, and then they're going to be right back out on the street. Too many families suffer. They go to court thinking they're going to get justice, and it doesn't happen. The person literally gets probation, and I've seen it. They get 5 years probation, no justice. And there is so many repeat offenders. When we go with Bentley and Mason's law, we're showing them that there are more consequences, that you cannot just go pay an attorney and get off scot-free. These are children who've lost their sole support. And when the sole support is gone, that falls on the grandparents, the aunts, the uncles, or, you know, the brothers or sisters who are going to raise these children. And some people can't even do that. There are some people who are on fixed incomes who, unfortunately, even though these poor children have been sent through tragedies, they end up going to the state because they can't afford to take care of them. Bentley and Mason's law, as we know, is not going to make anybody rich. This was never a get-rich thing. It was to help the families raise these children, to put a meal on the table, to put shoes on their feet. That little bit of help every month makes a huge difference. It really impacts the person who has to pay that child maintenance and the people around them, because they understand after a while they might be mad at first, and even though they're being forced to do it, it's a good choice because they do learn. I mean, I've seen people go into AA meetings and come out and say, wow, I can't wait till this is over. I'm only doing this because the court made me to. Well, you're getting 18 years, depending on how young that child is, or 15 or 14 years, to really think about what you've done. And I can guarantee you, within that first year, they're going to change their mind drastically. I hope and pray that this bill gets passed here in Missouri. This bill started in Missouri in 2022. It passed in 2022 in Tennessee. Last year, it passed in Kentucky, Maine, and Texas. This year, it has passed in Utah and South Dakota, and they are waiting the governor's signature. This bill is also going international. The bill has been introduced in 2022 in the Cayman Islands. We have a bill in Puerto Rico this year. We have the South Korea. It passed in March the 17th of 2023. I was called up in the middle of the night with a interview request from a news station down there. And I was surprised to see how far it's gone. And I would hope that Missouri, together with all these other states, we can all make a difference and make our roads safer for other families, for your family, for my family that I have still. Thank you all so much.
Thank you for your testimony
Thank you.
and the strength to come here and speak to us about your situation.
Thank you.
Any questions for this witness? Senator Bean.
You know, once again, I'm just going to echo the chairman's point about thank you for coming here and being here. I know telling your story is hard and important. I lost my brother-in-law to a drunk driver, so
Sorry.
your story sent chills. So once again, I know it took a lot to be here and tell your story, and thank you.
Thank you. I'm so sorry for your loss. I before I go, I did forget. I do have a meeting in April. It was actually supposed to be March, but I had surgery with members of Parliament in Canada for Bentley's Law. It's Bentley Mason's Law, normally shorted as Bentley's Law.
Any other questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you again for your testimony.
Thank you.
Anybody else here to testify in favor of the bill? Seeing none, anybody here to testify in opposition to the bill? Seeing none, anybody for informational purposes only? Any closing remarks, Senator?
Thank you for allowing me to present the bill and for the witness that spoke today.
I would expect a vote on that pretty quick.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go to the next bill. I don't see Senator Carter. Senator Carter, oh, she's here. Senator Carter, if you want to hop up and do Senate Bill 990, you're free to present when you're prepared. Senator, proceed when you're ready.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you very much for taking time to hear this bill. I'm Senator Jill Carter representing the 32nd District. The Senate Bill 990 specifies that if an applicant for a disabled person's license plate or windshield placard has presented a physician's statement noting that the applicable physical disability is permanent, then a physician's statement shall not be required in order to renew the plate or the placard. They still have to renew the plate or the placard, but this bill will remove the requirement to provide a physician's note saying they are permanently disabled because they are still permanently disabled. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions for the sponsor? Seeing none. Anybody here to testify in favor of the bill?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Jeanette Mott Oxford for Paraquad, one of Missouri's 22 independent living centers. Exactly, that's why we support the bill. If you're permanently disabled, having to say still disabled, over and over again is a lot of red tape, and people with disabilities already experience a lot of red tape. So thank you, Senator, for sponsoring this.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Welcome.
Anybody else here to testify in favor of the bill? Anybody to testify in opposition to the bill? Anybody for information purposes only? Senator, I have one question for you. I actually had a disabled, blind constituent in my office yesterday, and they have this issue where they have to go and do eye appointments even if they're permanently blind. And so I don't know if you'd be willing to maybe tack on a little
Senator,
language
would you
in there.
like to add that language?
I would love to. I don't even have the bill yet.
I was wondering
there's
if they were
House-
needing
there's
a
House
license
version.
plate. That was actually the concern.
I don't know. Let's talk about it. But there's another disabled population that shouldn't have to go into the eye doctor every 4
To confirm
years
they're blind.
to prove that they're blind.
Yeah.
And if an ophthalmologist says, "Hey, they're blind forever," so
I agree.
let's just talk about it. Maybe we can figure out. And I don't know if it fits. So let's make sure we're getting that
So
right.
this the language of this bill came about because I have a girl in my district that was adopted from South Korea. She's an Olympic swimmer with a great social media following, but she was showing how she had to go to the doctor to verify that she was an amputee. So it's those kinds of things that we just think, okay, they don't even need to go to the doctor.
Yeah, those are things. It feels like it's easy. Just let's get the government out of the
Yeah.
way of that stuff. Thanks,
Thank you.
Senator.
Appreciate your time.
Senator Bean, you're up next. Senate Bill 1299.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, or member of the committee, for the record, Jason Million, State Senator from the 25th District, here to present Senate Bill 1299. This legislation specifies that drivers shall stop at railroad crossings for any on-track equipment in addition to trains. Current law specifies when drivers are supposed to stop at railroad-grade crossings, such as a crossing gate is lowered or when a human flagman continues to give a signal of the approach or passage of a railroad train. By adding on any on-track equipment to the statute, we are further protecting drivers as well as railroad workers. I filed this bill in request of one of my constituents who is a railroad worker. He is here today and can explain the bill in further detail and the motivation behind this bill. With that, be happy to take any questions.
Any questions for the sponsor? Seeing none. Testimony in favor of the bill. Come on up and please make sure you fill out a witness form for our records and proceed when you're ready.
Well, my name is Corey Henry. I work for Union Pacific Railroad, been there for 18 years. I been represented here with the BMWE, our rail union. This bill here, it directly affects the engineering department, which is what I am. We operate the maintenance of the tracks, and the way the current bill or the current law stands is it protects the engineer and the conductors in the train. If a individual was to go around a protected crossing, such as if it's got lights, gates, yield sign or stop sign, which all four of them are identified as a protected crossing by the NTSB and the FRA, that if they go around a protected crossing and a train hits them, the engineer and conductor of the train is not liable. But the way it also currently stands, that if the same setup, but it's one of our equipment that goes through, I, as the operator of that equipment, even though that crossing was protected, we end up being personally held liable. And this has happened to some of our individuals in the past. That's what stemmed this law to begin with. And we have went through and have it passed already in 38 states, and hoping to see get it passed here in Missouri this year. If anybody has any questions, I'd be more than glad to answer anything.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Anybody else here to testify in favor of the bill? Anybody here in opposition to the bill? Please make sure you fill out a witness form. Thank you.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me okay? My name is Mark Parrish. I live in Lee Summit, Missouri. I'm an attorney and I'm a member of the Missouri Association of Trial Attorneys. For well over 20 years, I've represented individuals and families who have been injured or killed by railroad equipment, railroad workers that have been injured and killed by railroad equipment, and I have represented members of the motoring public that have been injured and killed by trains. Had the opportunity to meet Corey for the first time about a week ago. One thing that we both agree on is that it is important for there to be legislation that will increase safety for members of the public and railroad workers in all of the places in our state where railroad tracks meet roads at grade crossings. The reason that I am here urging you to vote against the bill is because although I am a strong proponent of increasing safety when it comes to our railroads, I believe that this bill will have the opposite effect in general for members of the motoring public, but more specifically with regard to any operation of commercial vehicles over grade crossings. And here's what I mean by that. Although there's the three components of the bills that have been identified that talk about crossings with lights and gates, and crossings being flagged, and then passive crossings that would be sign controlled only. It's really, for all practical purposes, it's the distinction between crossings with active warnings with lights and gates compared to passive crossings that would be sign controlled only, be it the ex-railroad signs are called crossbucks or even stop signs. The problem with this particular bill is that when a vehicle comes to a complete halt before a crossing, which is what this bill is wanting to occur not only when trains come, but when any rail equipment does, then the amount of time it takes to safely clear that crossing is increased, and there's a longer exposure to danger trying to get a vehicle safely across the street. Now, if I am, somebody that's driving a compact car or a motorcycle or something like that, it's not going to be an appreciable time difference. However, with pretty much any commercial vehicle of any size, that is a noticeable concern, and especially when you have the speeds that vehicles are allowed to travel on these tracks. By the time the decision is made to press upon the accelerator to try to get across the crossing, and the time it takes to safely clear that crossing, a motorist can be hit by a piece of equipment on the rail that they had not seen at the time that they had looked. I don't know if any of you remember, but a year or so ago that there was a derailment up in Minden, Missouri, that area. The NTSB, as part of their reporting, found that one of the hazards of that crossing was the fact that it was designed for the commercial vehicle, the dump truck, to stop before going across the crossing. And that was one of the aspects that made the crossing unreasonably dangerous. What this bill does is that it creates that scenario for every vehicle that is going along the rail. Right now, and again, if we talk about the crossings without lights and gates, the crossbucks, they act as a yield sign. And so then as the motorist approaches, they're able to gauge and see whether or not there is anything on the track, be it a train or some other piece of equipment, and then be able to continue across the crossing, assuming that there is sufficient time and distance. Not unlike any of us that drive a car and you come up to any sort of intersection that has left turn yield on green. When it is a yield, you have less time where you're exposed to danger going across. Switching briefly to crossings that have lights and gates. Of course, if if the gates are down and lights are flashing, then all motorists are supposed to stop until those no longer are triggered. A train coming through will trigger what is required for those lights and gates to become active, for those gates to lower, for motorists to know to stop. And it is true that some of the equipment that we're here to talk about now has been retrofitted to make these other vehicles act as if they were trains. And when those additions act correctly, they can trigger those same lights and gates. However, it is still trying to make those vehicles act like a train. A train will trigger a properly functioning light and gate every single time. Adding equipment to retrofit others' vehicles to try to do the same thing will hopefully work, but is at a higher risk of not working than when compared to a train. Also, trains are much more visible, they're much louder, they have lights in front, they have horn requirements. For all of those reasons, adding other on-rail vehicles, although it sounds like a logical addition, will increase the danger to the motoring public by requiring stops. And if collisions increase, not only is that an increased danger to the motorist, it's an increased danger to the railroad worker as well. For those reasons, I urge you to vote against this bill.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Anybody else here to testify in opposition? Anybody for informational purposes only?
Good morning. Katie Gamble here on behalf of the Missouri Railroad Association. These hearings tend to bring up a lot about safety, and so as the railroad, we always like to talk about all the things we're doing for safety purposes, which I could go into great detail into, including the fact that even when we just have board meetings, we have to go through a safety protocol and who's going to call 911 if we need it, who knows CPR, etc. railroads care a lot about safety. I've got a lot of great statistics that I won't bore you with on how we've increased safety over the years. And then I also just want to mention that you passed last year the grade crossing money. So we're working with MoDOT to update some of those crossings that need lights and gates, and working with them in the communities to figure out how to make those what are called passive crossings safer. I think even in the Mendon situation, we had put forth information to MoDOT, and we're waiting on MoDOT to, there was such a long list of crossings that needed updates. It just unfortunately hadn't made it to that list yet. And so we understand the need for all of that. The bill's passed in, I think, 36 other states. Happy to provide any information that we can from that perspective. But mainly I just like to talk about safety when we can. So, and I'm getting a question.
Questions
I
for the
know.
witness. Senator Eigel.
Did
Proceed.
I understand? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Did I understand that you have to have safety meetings before you have an office meeting? You were having
we
safety
do.
briefings
We literally,
before
so if
office
we were all
meetings.
meeting and talking about the railroads, we would sit down and say, okay, here are the exits. Who's going to call 911 if we need it?
For an office meeting.
Correct. Yes, we do.
All right.
Every time.
I don't know if that is engendering the kind of confidence in me that maybe you hope it is. So
Well, at least if you came to a meeting and something happened, we know who knows CPR and who's going to be in charge of helping that individual. And I think
Well-
we've learned, especially with.
I'm not sure if the chairman cares about safety because we didn't do that in this committee here.
You know what? I am
So,
happy to
I don't
always
know.
come in and lead a safety meeting.
I
if
hear
you
something
need
new
it.
every day in this building. Thank
Senator,
you.
we may have to
So-
do it for every meal you have. So
Oh.
I'm sorry. It's like a softball, just like a softball.
There's going to be some filibusters on the floor today, Senator.
I don't know. It may be worth it. That may be my finest
I
moment.
was just going to say, for the record, I did not say that. So
That's what I get for asking
That's what
questions.
you get. That's what you get. You just was like laid up right there. I'm so sorry. That was maybe not necessary.
Oh.
Any other questions for this witness?
have a
Seeing
good day,
none.
everybody.
Anybody else here for informational purposes only? Seeing none. Senator, any closing remarks?
Now, just real quick, I would say as a commercial driver or operator, any time that we're coming up on a railroad crossing lighted with crosswalks, with anything, we automatically slow down because we have things we have to worry about, like when we haul an excavator, we have to worry about the height. So we're already watching that pretty closely before we do. So appreciate
Senator.
Appreciate the
That'll
hearing.
conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 1299. No other business before the committee. That'll conclude the hearing on transportation infrastructure and public safety.